Perfect.
And then I'll cut out some of the stuff and trim it a little bit.
Now, do you guys have an Instagram or anything that I can go live with?
Yes. And I can send you the actual recording.
Okay.
So you're talking about technology that I'm not as familiar with, but it's Swedish junior hockey. I think it's just Swedish junior hockey on Instagram.
Swedish junior hockey.
Yeah. So I think.
Got it. A podcast. There we go.
Yep.
Awesome.
And then it's the we have a Facebook and then we have a Twitter account. I'm not on TikTok. But most of what I've found is the best way for me to be able to reach people is really through LinkedIn.
Got it. Okay,
and,
awesome.
Yeah, it's just been the easiest way to kind of connect with the right people. So
sure.
All right.
Sure.
All right. So, and how do you pronounce your last name so I don't butcher it?
It's Pentimone.
Okay. I didn't know where the enunciation would be. So all right, let's rock and roll. So with us today is Carla Pentimone, and interesting personality and a great background. Welcome to the Swedish Junior Hockey Podcast.
Thank you so much, Jacob. Excited to be here on this Sunday.
All right, sounds good. So I have Elite Prospects up, and I also have my LinkedIn profile up on you, and it says owner, founder at Women's College Hockey Recruiting. So, and then your Elite Prospects page has a interesting picture with looks like a championship celebration in the background. So tell everybody who you are and a little bit about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. Really appreciate you having me on today. So that's pretty accurate. We actually, Women's College Hockey Recruiting, we have a partnership with Elite Prospects. So really appreciate that all they are doing for the women's side and the growth of the women's side. Really, as we know on the men's side, Elite Prospects is kind of the end all be all with statistical information. So they're really upping the ante on the women's side here now.
Swedish company, by the way.
They do. I love all their coverage on the European content that comes out, which is fantastic.
So I know on your Elite Prospect, it's got the Wisconsin jersey on there. So NCAA Women's Championship there.
I just so happened to have my rings. We got back from Hillary Knight's Hall of Fame induction, so they were handy here. So I brought them to show you guys. But so I was nowhere near as good of a hockey player as a lot of my teammates, but I walked on to UW after playing out east at a small Division I school. And I played there from 2008 to 2011. We won a couple of national championships, and it was a ton of fun. And yeah, I've been kind of working in hockey ever since. So diving a little bit post graduation, I went to Northwestern for grad school. Thereafter, I coached AAA hockey. I coached hockey at the collegiate level, both on the men's and women's side. And I'm expecting a little one here, so taming it down a little bit and just going back to my alma mater to coach. We have a game tonight actually for Loyola Academy. So still involved in coaching. Coached a lot of disabled hockey as well with USA Hockey, coach blind hockey. So yeah, everything kind of hockey all the time.
It's awesome. And there's nothing like preparing yourself for parenthood to have already been in the coaching. So we'll see where that's going to go. I think when we first started talking, it's interesting when we started this podcast, it was, primarily because I grew up in Sweden and then I've been in the US really for a long, long time. And then my son grew up playing here and then he's playing juniors in Sweden. And the reason for starting it was because very few people in Sweden knows a lot about junior hockey in the US, and the junior hockey people here and youth hockey coaches and parents and players don't know anything about juniors in Sweden. So, there was no podcast to talk about the subject. And it was really, we say that it's by a Swede about Swedish juniors for the North American listener. Interestingly, so far as about 2/3 of the people that listen are actually Swedish people listening, and so on. But one of the things we haven't talked about too much has been women's hockey on the junior side in Sweden. So, and why I thought would be good, I could talk to you about recruiting, which we want to do. We could talk to you about being an advisor for young men and young women, which we probably want to do too. And we can talk about just hockey in general and where you were with all of your background. But I think it'd be, to start, would be interesting to hear, since there's a lot of young women that when you parallel the juniors for women, there is no juniors for women in practicality. So they end up going from youth hockey, where they play co-ed, and then they go in and play maybe Division I or sometimes SHL. But there's a lot of young women that are really solid hockey players that want to come over to the US to go to play NCAA college. So what have you seen? I know that you have seen some Swedish players through the year that have come through that way. What does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have the pleasure, I'll shout out Lisa Gear. She plays for the Great Britain U18 national team. And she was playing, junior hockey in the Swedish Junior League. And I think for a player like Lisa, especially with COVID and the logjam and the extra year of eligibility that athletes are getting, especially kind of in the market that we're in, maybe Division I isn't in the cards for every single one of those girls who are playing in the Swedish national leagues or the Swedish junior leagues. However, for someone like Lisa, she had high aspirations of playing hockey stateside in the US at the NCAA level. So I think a lot of times just getting that exposure, whether that's coming over for a year and playing at a prep school, or playing for a hybrid hockey academy somewhere like Northwoods or a hockey academy, and or a AAA program, a U19 team, and doing another year at U19s, so that they can get some exposure here stateside. I think it's a real challenge for the NCAA Division III programs, obviously, to get overseas and to scout in that league. Whereas at the Division I level, kind of money is a little bit not so much of an object. So we saw, for example, at the U.S. World Championships for U18s in Madison, we saw a ton of scouts, Division I scouts, all there, and they weren't there necessarily scouting the U18 players, but they were really building relationships with the International Hockey Federation team coaches to be able to foster that relationship for future athletes. Many of those girls who are on that team already are obviously already placed, or they're already committed, but fostering those relationships between the NCAA Division I coaches, and then obviously the coaches that are involved with the national governing bodies of each different country's national team, and kind of how deep that could get. At the Division I level, it's relatively easy, but Division III, there just aren't those dollars there. But so I think for me, the most interesting thing about this podcast is helping those girls who maybe are quote unquote bubbled Division I, Division III players, or would be really solid Division III athletes that can get leadership and merit scholarships at the NCAA level to come overseas stateside. And, so I think how to get those girls that exposure from the Swedish Junior League at that, age appropriate time to, maybe 16, 17, even 18 years old to come over and then have the opportunity to play at the NCAA level. So excited to maybe share some points on how that can happen for our Swedish listeners.
Yeah. So what are what are the challenges? So when you're saying money is one thing, but I guess that translates into the lack of ability to watch people live, right?
Yep.
So they take the
Absolutely.
known versus the unknown. We have maybe tape on a player, but it's bigger rink, it's different environment, different things, right? So what you're saying is, how do you, it's harder for the same talent from a different country to then be able to beat out the same or lesser talent sometimes just because they're not known. Is
Yeah,
that right?
and absolutely. And I think you know, kind of bridging that. And I think a large part of it, you know, maybe even 2 years ago, they were taking players sight unseen during COVID because they just needed to fill those roster spots. But now that things are kind of back in order, you know, how do you get, you know, those athletes to see them live one more time before, you know, making not just a 1-year commitment, but a 4-year commitment at the NCAA level? I'm going to shout out Harry Rosenhall. He just had a great camp over in Sweden with the College Hockey Showcase, giving players the ability in Sweden to sign up for that camp and have NCAA coaches there, which is pretty cool, both at Division I and Division III. But, you know, really outside of some of those opportunities, there's not a whole lot of opportunities for players to be seen live, unless they're making the trek to the States and getting involved with some of the camps there in order to be seen live.
So let's go into that. Like if you are, so let's talk to the player
Mhm.
and the parent of a Swedish 16-year-old girl
Yep.
that are preparing, love the game, is playing co-ed perhaps, maybe their first year gymnasium over there in Sweden, but their goal is, I want to keep on playing. I love this game. I want to keep on doing it. And by the way, I want to get an education and I want to keep on playing at the NCAA level. What are the 5-6 things that you would say they need to do to prepare?
Sure. So I think first and foremost, if they are very interested in playing in the States, I think a trip to the US is in order, and maybe a summer block of like 1 month where they're hitting, you know, a number of exposure opportunities, and then also potentially doing some college visits within that month. So, you know, the month of June, for example, could be a great opportunity for them to get over here and do Mike Cowan's, you know, Midwest Exposure Camp, or Cush's Rink Sport Camp, or Kathy Pippi's runs wonderful events. She's got a whole bunch of them throughout the summer. I mentioned Harry Rosenhall with CHS. You know, there's so many. There's college specific camps as well. You know, I don't want to leave anybody out here when I'm discussing a lot of these camps, but
They can retweet it from this. They can go in and retweet it from this Twitter handle. So
there we go. Hockey Masters as well. You know, there's definitely NA Elite. Sean puts on a really great camp with NA Elite, and it's kind of invite only. But you know, getting overseas or from overseas to kind of come and be able to be seen live is very, very important. I think especially for coaches to kind of get that last look. But prior to that, as they are preparing for those exposure opportunities, you know I've went into my coach Carla's, you know, 6 or 7 pillars of recruiting on other podcasts, and you know,
let's
many
do
people
it.
may know, but
Let's redo it.
so, you know, I like to call it Coach Carla's 6 pillars of recruiting. And these are things, girls, that you should be doing all the time. So, you know, first and foremost, checking out uscho.com. That's your one-stop shop for all NCAA hockey. You can find all, you know, the plus 70 Division III schools on there and plus 40 Division I schools. So, you know, knowing which those programs are and doing a bit of research is important. You know, that obviously that's something that we go quite in depth with WCHR and our website and the tools that we have. But I would say that what you girls could be doing is, you know, calling coaches, emailing coaches, in some cases texting with coaches, depending, or WhatsApp for you girls over in Europe. Letter of recommendation, that coming from your current coach going out to college programs is going to mean a lot. So not just saying, hey coach, write my letter of recommendation, I'd really appreciate it, but provide your coach with, what you're doing in gymnasium, or provide them, your extracurriculars above and beyond what your hockey skill sets are, your community service that you're doing. So call, email, texting, letter of recommendation, recruiting questionnaires. Part of what you girls are going to want to make sure that you're doing is filling out the recruiting questionnaires on the websites. Now the NCAA does require separate identification numbers, both at Division I and Division III. So you'll want to make sure that you're getting both a number for Division I and Division III to be able to populate that. And that's as simple as just going in and Googling NCAA Clearinghouse. There's a spot for athletes, and you'll be able to register and get a number for both Division I and Division III and plug those into the recruiting questionnaires. There's softwares out there where you don't have to recreate the wheel every single time, so you can kind of auto populates your information. But that quantitative data within those recruiting questionnaires is so very important for coaches to kind of know what your grad year is, what your test scores are potentially if you have them. Some of these schools are test optional. What your GPA looks like, obviously height, weight, different pointers about you, place to drop videos. So again, call, email, recruiting questionnaire, letters of recommendation, texting. And then last but not least, we'll talk about the utilization of Twitter and Instagram and social media platforms. So my philosophy on social media, everyone is different. I think transparency is key. And I think, people will ask me, Carla, should I create my own separate hockey Instagram? I answer no. I'm pretty transparent on my social media. You'll see things about obviously WCHR, but then you'll see things about, me coaching, me with my family, maybe me out at a concert, but you'll get kind of my truest self on there, right? Whether people like it or not. But I think that's, not every single coach is going to jive, or you might not jive with every single program, but you're going to want to be your authentic self, so that coaches know who you are and that they can what's called passively follow you throughout your recruiting process, and to see the type of person you are, to see, maybe what highlight content that you have. If you have highlight videos of yourself, or, hey, just got to, the Labor Day showcase, excited, take a selfie with your teammates, reposting content from, whether that's your college programs you're interested, or your prep school. So many different things that you can be doing on social media to be more searchable. And we talk a lot about search engine optimization for our athletes and what that means. So, say you have a tournament and you're to be seen on a roster, right? And they give you a quick Google, take, for example, a guy like Sidney Crosby, right? He's had hundreds of thousands of articles written about him, from ESPN, TSPN to the TSN to the Pittsburgh Penguins website. But that first thing that populates for him is actually going to be like his Twitter profile. And that's the same thing for you girls. So, if you post a lot of content about, what you're doing on social media, it's going to make you more searchable for the college coaches. So I would urge you to, post on your social media, obviously not be super boastful and all the time, but, post relatively frequently, and then follow the programs that you're interested, follow Chatham Women's Ice Hockey, follow, Lebanon Valley or Wilkes University or whatever it might be, to start to see what they are about. Maybe they'll give you a follow back, and then you have this relationship going for the next couple of years to see, hey, I like, their values. I like what they're posting about. I like their content. This may be a school I want to check out.
So what are the biggest pitfalls that you see? Where do they get stuck beyond kind of they're not noticed?
Sure. So I would say some colleges are going to be better with their international student athletes than others. And that's just, point blank facts. We see schools like, that just don't have maybe the resources to be able to support applications, or, there's a lot of red tape that goes into getting, an application through, and, the differences of what you're doing, in gymnasium, and the different, the kind of the different roadblocks, to the applications that might just be easier for athletes that are stateside or, US citizens. We also see that though as well with our Canadian athletes. And so it's just a matter of kind of, really talking to the coaches, I'd say, and seeing, how do you guys do with your international student athletes? Have you had other international student athletes play intercollegiate athletics, not just within women's ice hockey, but also, across the board? Is there a liaison for international student athletes? I know like SUNY Oswego does a fantastic job with their internationals, as one Division III school that, is noteworthy. Mark does a great job there. So, you just kind of have to, I say kind of cast a wide net is really important when you're reaching out, say to the 72 Division III schools. If you do it, we do it pretty methodically here at WCHR, but making sure that you are pretty methodical. And then, all right, this school doesn't seem to have very much help for their international student athletes. I might be hitting roadblocks there, and then just kind of continue to go from there. So I'd say probably the application process would be one of the biggest roadblocks, other than getting, a coach may really want you, but, how are we going to get into that program, financially, and otherwise academically?
Yeah, I think it's great stuff. And it's, I find it's mind-boggling how many things that has to be checked off, and just to be able to go to college.
Sure.
It's funny. I was just filling out my son's. He was going to take one class at the local community college, and I was telling a friend I should have had a degree just in academic admissions, just to be able to get past the just to take one class, and so on. And then there's a lot of hurdles within the clearinghouse that you got to be really careful with, so you're not ineligible.
Yep, absolutely.
Well. So what's the best way, just kind of wrapping things up, what I want people to get is, look, this is out here. There's resources available. It can be a minefield to a certain degree, but it's all about networking and finding the personality that fits for you. And there's, you're not going to have capacity to work with everybody, but there's going to be someone out for each and every one. But I think it's important to be able to find who's going to be the right fit, who fits the personality, the goals, and so on and so forth. What's the best way is it okay for people to reach out and say, or what's the best channel for a parent or a player to reach out to you and your firm?
Yeah, absolutely. So, honestly, my cell phone's always on. So I'll just share my cell phone number here. So it's 773-875-0440. I'm always on the go at the rink. So give me a call if you have any questions, shoot me a text. Also my email, cpentimone at so that's CPENTIMONE, and then it's at womenscollegehockeyrecruiting.com. You can also find us on Instagram, Women's College Hockey Recruiting. But probably the first two ways are going to be best, most direct, is just to call or email us. I try to check my direct messages as much as possible. And, also through Jacob has my contact information as well. So, yeah. I really, even if you're not signing up, to pay with WCHR, I'd like to try to help as best as I can, direct you girls and your families to maybe a particular school you're interested in, and the contact there. But always trying to help as many people as I can. I love giving back to the sport that has given me so much, and I know I had some fantastic mentors growing up. So I appreciate this opportunity to kind of reach some of the masses over in Sweden.
And I know you're getting ready to head out the door, because what's tonight?
So we have a game tonight, first home game for Loyola Academy. Really excited, jazzed up about that. Hopefully we'll get a Rambler win for our girls. So it's been an action-packed weekend. I was just, I think I mentioned, but I was at Hillary Knight's Hall of Fame induction. So I got to see some of my former teammates, which was really great. And it's been a wonderful weekend. So hopefully we can finish it with a big win for the Ramblers.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on. It's a little bit of a different kind of flavor, a little bit different twist on where Junior Hockey Advisor is going, but I really felt that that was an untapped area that we are going to dig more into instead of just talking about the guys. We want to expand this into not just Sweden, but we've talked to some Danish, and we're going to talk to Tommy from Finland here soon, and we want to also talk about women and young women that are following the same dream in this great sport. So thanks for coming on, and we'll definitely stay in touch.
Thanks so much, Jacob. Thanks for having me.
All right, take care. Awesome. I'll cut this out. Normally I have to hit, so it stops recording when I hit stop, and then it just saves it locally.
Sure.
So it'll take probably 4 weeks. I'm trying to release one once a week.
Okay. Awesome.
And so you're after Tommy Salo, and then there's Ted Suikonen. I don't know if you know Ted. He's a skills guy. He's very active on social media. And then it's going to be you.
That's awesome. I'm super excited. That sounds fantastic. Is that going to be on Instagram? And how do you guys share that?
I think it gets shared. So we're also part of the Hockey Focus, which is a podcast that, you know, they have like a bunch of different ones. We're helping them out to get more viewers so they can monetize it. I don't care. But so they kind of simulcast or send it out under theirs. I just haven't got into the whole writing the blog, and it's just hard enough to record enough of them.
Sure.
But normally it gets launched on LinkedIn, which has been I have a huge network on LinkedIn. It gets out on Facebook, it gets out on Twitter, and I think it gets launched automatically on Instagram.
Awesome.
But I'll send you kind of the best way that I have found is that I'll just send the copy of the actual podcast episode.
Okay.
Be in a link that you can just go out and post wherever you are. You just copy the link and share it.
Awesome.
And that could be from Spotify or Apple Podcasts or different areas.
Perfect. That sounds great, Jacob. Yeah, I think it's wonderful what you're doing. This is fantastic, just to get the word out and information to help kids, because, you know, even if it's one little tidbit from, you know, each person, I think, you know, getting to know and learn is so important. Well, we become experts after the fact, and hopefully we can kind of narrow that gap and not stepping on landmines. So, all right. Good luck tonight. Thank you. Good luck next week. Go get some singing in with your daughter. Have a great rest of the weekend. All right. Take care. Bye. Thanks, Jacob. Thank you.